Hey folks, welcome back to another Train Sim World 3 episode. In today's episode, I'm going to be giving my initial thoughts on the recently released Niddertalbahn Bad Vilbel to Stockheim route add-on. Now first off, I want to apologize. I was really hoping to get this video out a little bit sooner, but as I've stated in the past, I have been very busy recently, and unfortunately, I do not see my schedule lightening up anytime soon. Now for those of you that may be new to the channel, I play Train Sim World for fun, and I enjoy the game because it is very therapeutic for me. I consider myself to be a casual player who enjoys playing the game as realistically as possible. However, I have reasonable expectations. I consider myself to be a fairly forgiving person, but I am once again paying $40 for this route, so it needs to meet some basic standards. I do not label this video as a full-on review for a few reasons, first of which being that I honestly don't feel qualified to give a full review. Secondly, this is really just a quick skim over the route. I will discuss the selling points of the route and will share my experiences I've had so far. I may give my opinion at times, but at the end of the video, I am not going to tell you whether or not you should buy the route. I believe that choice is solely up to you, the viewer. Everyone values things differently than I do, so I can only speak for myself and no one else. It is also worth mentioning that I am very much an American and have no background knowledge on this part of Germany. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the Niddertalbahn. Train Sim Germany's first Train Sim World release, the Niddertalbahn, takes place in the 1990s. Because of this, the station names and the scenery are time sensitive. The line connects the towns of Bad Vilbel and Stockheim, making 15 stops in between. This route includes the DBBR 6282 and the DBBR 365. Both of which are diesel locomotives. It is also worth mentioning that the DBBR 103 from the previous release, Linke Rheinstrecke, Mainz to Koblenz, runs AI services in the small areas of the line where overhead wires are located. I did not purchase Linke Rheinstrecke, so I have nothing to report in that aspect. I will say right off the bat that if you were looking for a fast-paced, heavy traffic route comparable to Kassel-Würzburg, this route is definitely not for you. Although the speeds are not as slow as they would be on, say, West Somerset Railway, the speeds are still set at a relatively slow pace. It is clear that the main focus when developing this route was the scenery. And that was time well spent, as this is the strongest scenery I have ever seen in a Train Sim World route. This route has a very heavy presence of vegetation. Because of this, the route has a very different vibe than any other Train Sim World route. As soon as you spawn in, you are surrounded by greens of all sorts. Unless, of course, you decide to play in winter, which honestly, I don't recommend, because without all of the vegetation in the landscape, it does tend to look a little bit barren. A small gripe I have with the scenery is the short draw distance for vegetation. Now, I know this is more of a general issue for the game that's been around forever, but with the heavy presence of vegetation, it is much more obvious in this case. With that being said, it isn't really game breaking or even immersion breaking by any means, just somewhat annoying. While taking a winter drive, I also noticed that the crops are season sensitive, meaning that the fields will lie empty during the winter months, whereas in the summer months, they would have crops planted throughout. As strange as this may sound, I absolutely love the detail that they have put into the crops and vegetation as a whole. It looks so much better than your typical run-of-the-mill DTG asset. A larger portion of the map is available for you to explore on foot than usual. The devs did a nice job of including various small details throughout the route, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over all of these here. Although I cannot say for sure if this is a new feature, it is nice to see that the automobiles stop for you instead of plowing you over when walking in front of them. The stations on this route are extremely unique. Some of them don't seem to be much of a station at all and feel more like a bus stop. There are also some more traditional stations which are highly detailed and look great. The final thing I will mention on the topic of scenery is about frames. I noticed that my typical 60 FPS has dropped down to 30, which for me is usually concerning as I do have a fairly respectable machine and I am not used to getting drops like this. Although I do not want to quickly draw conclusions, it may have been in part due to my recording software. The Dovetail team is no stranger to wrestling with recording software, as back in August, the Train Sim World 3 preview streams experienced various frame catastrophes. I, however, have never experienced anything quite like that yet. Alright, now let's talk about the trains. Like I said earlier, I am a casual player and not a Deutsche Bahn nerd, so please forgive me as I am going to stay out of the specifics here. Now, to be blunt, I absolutely love the 6282. I'm a big fan of the mint livery, and it is a nice change of pace from the usual Deutsche Bahn red. It almost feels as if you were driving a semi-truck or a bus with its sluggish but reliable acceleration and the absolute ear candy engine audio. I have no complaints about the appearance of the loco, and I thought the location of the PZB and SIFA was a nice touch. The only problem I really have with this thing is the horn. Now, I'm not very familiar with the European horns, or more specifically the 6282 horns, so this might be more of my opinion, but to me the horn sounds horrific. It has a very high-pitched squeal and a very obvious loop, which is a shame since this was the first Train World route with the AI whistle boards. Let me know how accurate the horn is in the comments because I'm genuinely curious. Sadly, I could not find any clips of it online. Now moving on to the 365, which is the shunting locomotive. I have played the 365 for admittedly a lot less time than its counterpart. However, it has a much lighter presence in the timetable than the 6282. The sounds are on point and the looks are great for the most part. The rolling stock that comes along with it meets my standards. I did, however, notice some low-resolution buttons on the inside of the cab, which is disappointing to see. They look really out of place as they have a significantly lower resolution than the rest of the train. As far as traffic on this route goes, typically you're going to be on a single-track line, so you will not have a lot of passing trains, but I think the train-to-track ratio is quite good in the more dense areas of the route. Overall, from what I've seen in the first few hours of playing, I'm very impressed. This route is truly one of a kind. There's really nothing else quite like it in the game. With that being said, I think it is important for us to have a conversation about the price. It is completely understandable why questions are being raised about how it is possible to justify charging $40 for a 19-mile route. Thankfully, I can confirm that in that 19 miles, the route is full of lush, vibrant scenery with excellent locos that could keep you busy for quite some time. I was overall left with a much more positive and fulfilling experience than I had on my last purchase, which was the New York to Trenton route. Well, folks, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you all did enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you do choose to pick up Niddertalbahn, I really hope you enjoy it. Have a great day, everybody.